Hi, everybody. This is my summarized command line tool. The first thing I want to do here is just walk you through the architectural diagram so we can get a high level understanding of what's going on. So we have a Python script, which we call with our command line tool, but we'll get to that. And what this Python script does is it deploys Pegasus XSum, which is a pre-trained model from Google that has a summarization feature, which we use. It deploys that model to Amazon SageMaker for inference. So, as we stated, that is called through our command line tool, and there are a few other commands that come along with this. So we can query that endpoint to get a summarized result. Restoring the local files. This sort of just helps if something goes wrong with the tool. Maybe we lose track of our endpoint or our model. We can sort of just get that back. I find that this was able to fix most of the issues that I was having. And most importantly, removing the model in the endpoint so that we aren't using or aren't being charged for resources that we aren't using because that's never any good. All of these commands wrap into this command line tool, and we're able to talk to the hosted model with these commands. So if we run this query command here, we get back from our hosted model a summarized result, which is going to be stored in output file.txt. Now to show you a little bit more under the hood of what's going on, the first thing I want to direct your attention to is this source folder here. And this is where all of our commands are. So we see deploy, query, remove, and restore. I use this cool program called Bashly, which takes all of these and sort of just amalgamates them all into one file, which is this summarized tool here. And that's why this is so long because that's all of those commands. A lot of the documentation is all sort of just in this one file. Um, to show you the first step, I actually ran this before I started recording because it takes a little while, but we would run summarize deploy, and that deploys the model to SageMaker, gets us the information that we need to be able to query that endpoint, stores that information locally, and then the next step would be to put something in our corpus.txt. Now, what I put here is pretty much just the first couple of paragraphs of the France Wikipedia page. The only real big limitation here is you cannot have more than 2,155 characters. So in future iterations, I'd love to automatically truncate the text or maybe just run multiple queries. I think that would be really cool and really useful. But in its current state, no matter what format this comes in, we can parse through it and make sure it's in the correct JSON format for querying. And the next step is to just run summarize query or Q as a shorthand. And what that's going to do is take this corpus, clean it, put it into this corpus.json, invoke the endpoint, and we're going to get back a summarized result, which we're going to see here in a second. So as we can see here, there's a little bit of output we have to look through. This is pretty much just what's returned if we have a successful query. Uh, we see this printed out to the console, finished, results are in output file, and we also get the result printed to standard output. So if we look in output file, we see the summary here. Obviously, this is sort of a limited tool in that we're not getting back much here in terms of how much is actually summarized, how much comes with our result. And one of the things I'd like to do to combat that is um, allow users to choose different models to deploy. So right now, this is just hard coded Pegasus XSum, but I'd really love to get this to a point where you can pass in whichever model you want. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much the tool. As always, the most important step is to run remove so that we are not charged for these resources if we're not using them. Um, yeah, so that's the command line tool. If it's preferred to run it in a notebook environment, I have something for that here as well. It's a little bit easier to follow the logic, I think. This is pretty much the same because the model has to be deployed in Python. We pretty much just save a predictor variable and we run predictor.predict rather than summarize query. And we get the result back here. And as always, at the end, deleting the resources, super, super important. So yeah, this features continuous integration. This has a lot of good test cases here. I'd welcome you to take a look if you're interested. And thank you for watching.